Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky held urgent talks with key allies while traveling to the United States hours after Russia launched fresh drone and missile strikes on Kyiv. During a stopover in Canada, Zelensky met Prime Minister Mark Carney and later briefed European Union, NATO and European leaders who pledged full support. Zelensky said Moscow's attacks show it has no desire for peace as he prepares to meet US President Donald Trump to push for security guarantees. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has committed to send up to $2.5 million in economic aid to Ukraine in a meeting between the two leaders. The first phase of voting has begun in some 103 townships of Myanmar as the junta calls for a strictly regulated vote. Critics maintain that this is just a way of legitimizing junta rule. A single-engine plane crashed into the sea in Copacabana in Brazil, killing the pilot, the only occupant of the aircraft. The plane was carrying out an advertising banner when it crashed near Rua Santa Clara, sinking rapidly after the impact, according to witnesses and images that recorded the moment of the fall. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un attended a meeting to mark the anniversary of the promulgation of its socialist constitution half a century ago, according to Pyongyang's state media. China's cyber regulator has issued draft rules for public comment that would tighten oversight of artificial intelligence services designed to simulate human personalities and engage users in emotional interaction. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian says Iran is engaged in a total war with the United States, Israel and Europe, claiming the pressure is worse than the 1980s conflict with Iraq. He says Iran's military is now stronger after the June war with Israel. All right, viewers, let's start with the top focus. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky held urgent talks with the key allies while traveling to the United States hours after Russia launched fresh drone and missile strikes on Kyiv. During a stopover in Canada, Zelensky met Prime Minister Mark Carney and later briefed European Union, NATO and European allies who pledged full support. Zelensky said Moscow's attacks show it has no desire for peace as he prepares to meet US President Donald Trump to push for security guarantees. Let's listen into the Ukrainian president first.
На шляху до Сполучених Штатів Америки до зустрічі з президентом Трампом ми обговорювали з нашою, колись ми називали це Вашингтонська команда, зараз це Берлінська команда, більш ширший склад європейських лідерів. Ми обговорювали ключові документи, про які ми будемо говорити завтра з президентом Трампом, головні документи. І 20 пунктів ми обговорювали питання, наше ставлення до територіального питання, до Запорізької станції, до питань з грошима. Зараз нам простіше, як ми казали, у нас 20 пунктів вже 90% готові, тому що є рішення, може комусь подобатись, комусь ні, але тим не менш 100 мільярдів.
On the other hand, Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that Moscow will pursue military action if Ukraine does not agree to end the war on Russia's terms. Putin said Kyiv is in no hurry to seek peace and claimed Russian forces have captured 2 more towns in eastern Ukraine. Let's hear him.
И если киевские власти не желают закончить дело миром, мы решим все стоящие перед нами задачи в ходе специальной военной операции вооруженным путем. Сейчас мы видим, на Западе тоже появились умные люди, которые рекомендуют киевским властям принять достойные условия завершения конфликта и предоставляют хорошие базовые условия для обеспечения безопасности Украины на длительную историческую перспективу. Но мы видим, что и сегодня, к сожалению, главари киевского режима не спешат решать этот конфликт мирными средствами.
Viewers, crucial developments now coming in. Zelensky, of course, issuing a statement after Russian bombing, but Russia and President Putin continue to maintain that the war will not end till Ukraine agrees to the full terms as mentioned by President Putin. Zelensky, till Ukraine agrees to the full terms, full all of his maximalist demands. If that is the case, what is even the point really of the peace dialogue that's being held? Because Putin, of course, is in no mood to budge from his demands.
In no mood to budge from his demands. He's also not party to the creation of this new 20-point plan. So I'm not sure how realistic it is for Zelensky to go to Washington and put the finishing touches on this 20-point plan when not only has Putin and the Russians not been party to its creation, but they also have already basically rejected it. It is contrasting with the 28-point plan that the Russians had generated last month, and it is very far apart from where the Russians would like to be.
Sure. Do you think the support that Zelensky is seeking from US particularly will be given to him, because Trump has not made any such indications in the recent past at least?
Well, the American delegation has been party to the creation of this 20-point plan. It's the Russians that have basically been missing in action. And I think the purpose of this meeting will ultimately be to secure basic agreement on basic elements of this plan, but also to secure security guarantees from the Americans and the Europeans and other parties involved here. So I think there's some momentum attached to it, but the problem that we ultimately face is that if there can't be a meeting of the minds between the Ukrainians and the Russians in terms of what is acceptable, one is from Venus, one is from Mars, if they can't meet in the middle, well, I think this war is going to just continue to go on. And as we've seen in recent days, the continued attacks on Ukraine, especially on Kyiv overnight, certainly don't give any indication that the Russians are intending to stop fighting.
All right, sure. Do continue to stay on with me, Mr. Wagner, as we have some more developments now coming in. Let's give our viewers. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has also met with Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney, viewers, in Halifax ahead of his planned talks with US President Donald Trump. Standing alongside Zelensky, Carney said any peace deal would require willing Russia, pointing to what he called a barbaric overnight attack on Kyiv as proof of the stakes involved. He announced an additional 2.5 billion Canadian dollars in economic assistance for Ukraine. After the meeting, Zelensky spoke with several European leaders. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said efforts must focus on a just and lasting peace that safeguards Ukraine's sovereignty and strengthens its defense. All right, I request Mr. Wagner to join me back in the discussion here. Of course, now Zelensky has managed to get some more funds this time from Canada after having received almost about 100 billion from the European Union as loan. How do you think he will be able to leverage all these funds that he is receiving when the war is still ongoing? The funds were essentially to reconstruct Ukraine that's war torn, but I think most of these finances will be spent in military as of now.
Well, a portion of it will be. It's important to distinguish between military versus financial assistance. In this case, what the Canadians have done is they have allocated a significant portion of the total funding to be supportive of loans and loan guarantees through multilateral organizations such as the IMF and the multilateral development banks, specifically the World Bank. And so this is very significant financial assistance, not military assistance, because these organizations basically don't support forms of military assistance. But it's very significant that the Canadians have stepped up to the plate yet again with a large sum of money. $2.5 billion is pretty significant for an economy that size. And if we bear in mind that the U.S. has given some $130 billion in aid since the war began. The Europeans have given some $180 billion of aid since the war began. I mean, every billion counts at this point.
Yeah.
The Ukrainians, they want to make sure that every conceivable form of financial assistance remains available to them, because if it begins to dry up, then the peace process is going to take a very different turn. The Russians are not going to stop. They continue with their barrages. And if the funding dries up for military support for the Ukrainians, then they're going to be in even bigger trouble.
All right, we don't see Russia stopping, at least whether or not Ukraine has the required funds and finances. But thanks very much, Mr. Wagner, for giving your opinion in this discussion here at NewsX World. And with that, viewers, we move ahead to some news from South Asia. Now, Myanmar's military-backed election is underway, with polling stations opening in about a third of the country, despite ongoing civil war and repression. The first phase of voting started on December 28, with 2 additional rounds scheduled for January 11 and 25. However, 65 townships have been excluded, disenfranchising at least 20% of the population. The military junta, which seized power in a 2021 coup, claims the election is free and fair, but critics, including the UN and human rights, argue it is neither credible nor inclusive. Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy remains banned, and many opposition parties are excluded from the ballot. The junta's Union Solidarity and Development Party is expected to dominate. Critics say the elections are being held in an environment of violence and repression, with the country still in the grip of a civil war that has claimed tens of thousands of lives. And I now invite Satoru Nagao, fellow at the Hudson Institute in Japan, to join me in this discussion. Thank you very much, Mr. Nagao, for joining me here at NewsX World and to take part in this discussion. Mr. Nagao, really, can we see these elections in Myanmar being held in a legitimate and fair manner? Because the prime criticism that's coming in is that opposition parties are not even allowed to vote. So how will the results of this election be considered legitimate when only the dominant party is contesting?
This is election only legitimize the military junta because of under the civil war. This is an election where the military junta can win. So this means that there is no election where the military junta cannot win. So this is not fair and free and fair. So that's why this is a process. Military junta legitimize the regime in Myanmar. But only in Myanmar. So only in the area of the military junta can win. So they can legitimize it. So except this, no one in the world can believe this is a legitimate election.
All right, sure. And what's your opinion about the polls being held in a phased manner? Will that ensure elections, in whichever capacity they are being held as of now, to be any free or fair?
Free and fair election has happened after the civil war, I think, because during fighting how to vote, that is a very important question. So that's why the military junta faced a very serious situation because they cannot get legitimize something. So that's why they try to get. But this is just a ceremony. So that's why just a ceremony do not mean free and fair election. Free and fair election it can legitimize government, But this is not free and fair election, so that's why this is just a ceremony.
Dr. Nagao, would you also say that the fact that the junta has decided to use biometrics of the voters can be used against the population of the country in, having a dictatorial approach for them?
Simply said, yes, I think. Because why they need? Because they worry about legitimacy of their government. They got the power through coup. This is not a legitimate situation. They need something to prove the people support them. So that's why they try to do that. But this is just a ceremony to do it. Because most of the people who oppose the military junta cannot join the election. This means that this number the military junta will get is not real number, real popularity of the military junta. So that's why even if the election has happened, military junta cannot prove their legitimate government. But view from the military junta who controls the information inside of the Myanmar, and within the area the military junta can win, by using this number they try to legitimize their government. And that is they want to do. So that's why they hold the election. But indeed this is a meaningless election.
All right, sure. Thank you for your perspective there, Dr. Nagao. But do continue to stay on with us. Viewers, the US has welcomed a ceasefire agreement between Thailand and Cambodia, calling for its immediate and full implementation. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Washington urges both sides to honor their commitment under the Kuala Lumpur Peace Accords after weeks of deadly border clashes. The ceasefire came into effect at noon local time on December 27, ending nearly 3 weeks of fighting that displaced close to 1 million civilians along the border. In a joint statement, the defense ministers of Thailand and Cambodia agreed to freeze current front lines, halt troop reinforcements, and allow displaced civilians to return home as soon as possible. The agreement also provides for the release of 18 Cambodian soldiers held by Thailand once the ceasefire holds for 72 hours. The breakthrough followed days of negotiations supported by diplomatic efforts from the US and China, raising hopes for lasting stability in the region. All right, I now request Dr. Nagao to join me back in the discussion here. Dr. Nagao, how do you foresee the ceasefire? Do you think that it will last the 72-hour period?
This is a good situation anyway, because in the past, this Cambodia-Thailand battle looks like proxy war between the US and China. In July, President Trump arranged a ceasefire has happened, and that time, not only President Trump, but also the Chinese ambassador also joined, so both US and China involved. But October, when President Trump arranged a joint declaration between two countries, that time the US is there, but and Cambodia and Thailand, of course, there, but there is no China's presence. That's why the China has a complaint and asked Cambodia to attack Thailand, despite Cambodia side, the military power is far weaker than Thailand. But so under that time, this looks like proxy war between US and China.
Right.
So that's why the Thailand and Cambodia do not wish the involvement of the US and China. They support the ceasefire is good, but at the same time, ceasefire itself should be decided by the local country, the Thailand and Cambodia bilaterally. So
Right.
this time, this is a bilateral agreement. So that's why the US and China a little take distance, just to support them. And finally welcome this ceasefire. This is very good, polite attitude of the US and China, I think.
All right, but how do you think Thailand has agreed to this mediated ceasefire? Because it had earlier issued a statement to say that it will not allow any third-party intervention at this point.
Yeah, that's why the Thailand do not like, because in the past this is US and China battle, so proxy war. So that is not comfortable, because Cambodia provoked Thailand despite military power is weak is because of the China is backing the Cambodia, because of the China is not included in the ceasefire agreement. So that's why if China involved or US involved, then this war between Thailand and Cambodia could be just a part of U.S.-China competition, and Thailand do not wish this situation. Cambodia also worry about this situation. So that's why this time, between Thailand and Cambodia, they decide themselves, and U.S. and China is already take distance from this and just support this. This is what happening this time. So that's why this is welcome for the regional countries, local countries. And polite attitude of the U.S., China, especially the U.S. in this case, is contributing this. So not involve directly, just take this stance and just support it. So that's why U.S. welcomed this agreement. Is very polite and good thing, I think.
All right, sure. And what's your opinion of the diminishing role of ASEAN, between in this conflict at least? While the US and China have stepped in, there was no particular action at least taken by the ASEAN nations.
Yeah, that is a concerning point, I think, because ASEAN try to show the presence in the mediation. That is what is happening. But view from the Thailand and Cambodia, this is not enough level of the intervention, because ASEAN lacks the capability to arrange a ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia. Indeed, U.S. can show the influence, China can show the influence, but not ASEAN. So ASEAN arranged, especially the lead by Malaysia this year, that they arrange a meeting. That is a contribution ASEAN set up. But after that, ASEAN's contribution is very limited. So in Myanmar, they failed. This time, the Thailand, Cambodia, they failed to not show the strong influence. So ASEAN faces a crisis now. Now, of course, ASEAN can continue the existence, but at the same time, value of ASEAN rely on their contribution. And view from this, ASEAN need to show more presence to maintain the peace in this place and integrate the effort of the Southeast Asian members. So that is the current situation ASEAN is facing, I think.
All right. Well, thanks again very much, Dr. Nagao, for joining us in this discussion. And with that, we're going to proceed. China's cyber regulator has issued draft rules to tighten oversight of AI services that simulate human personalities and engage emotionally with users. The proposed regulations require AI providers to warn against excessive use and intervene if addiction or extreme emotions are detected. These rules also mandate safety measures, including algorithm reviews and data security, and set content guidelines to prevent the spread of harmful material such as violence or misinformation. Meanwhile, the draft aims to address psychological risks, requiring providers to monitor user behavior and ensure emotional well-being. This move reflects China's push to strengthen the ethical and safety standards of rapidly expanding AI technologies. And that's all we have time for in this edition of the World Report. But do keep watching NewsX World for more news and updates from around the world.